think I actually started a second too soon. We'll get the hang of this yet. I'm Don Ford. This is Brace for Impact from Organize Better Tomorrow. We have been away for quite some time. I don't know. There's so much that happened this year, but we've been making the switch from Twitter Spaces to using, more of a Discord center and setup. Hopefully it works today. We're working on getting all the kinks out. I am, not as the current lead computer person, I am not the I am not the right person for that role. But I'm learning. I think I finally opened up my BIOS on my computer and I kind of know what things do now. I remember the first time I opened it up and I was like, this is like learning something. I have no idea what is happening. And so it's been good. But, this is coming because we have had some success. As much trouble as we've been having getting the stream up and going. And I do want to say, since we haven't done shows consistently through the month of January, we've been doing this show for about 3 years now. I can't really get over how much has changed in just 1 month. I feel like we were working on an article. We wanted to do an article series and get the ball rolling and talk about what's happening. And it was just the first 5 days, how much happened in the first 5 days. And then how that's just continued to just be at a rapid rate. We have gotten some good news. I feel like if your focus isn't on ICE, and I feel like because we've got the whole group here today, I feel like there's really something to say. If you're following COVID conscious people who aren't willing to talk about ICE, you need to be really thinking about who you're following. Because I feel like this is such a turning point moment in what your priorities are that people have a lot of shaded interests where they come online and they act a certain way to try to get you to support them in whatever it is they're doing. But then when it comes time for things that actually help people are really important, they're kind of silent because they have shaded interests. So I think seeing who actually is talking about this stuff and speaking up right now is really important, because if they're not concerned about your safety in regards to ICE, then they're not really concerned about your safety. And that, I feel like, is something that really needs to be said. Now, I do want to share some good news as a group. We have been advocating for, we've been doing a lot of vaccine advocacy, the Novavax stuff and all those other things. But I feel like the big win, which someone else should say something. We got all these people in here. We got a big win in that Pfizer, which Pfizer is not the good news, but it kind of is. They signed a deal with Novavax to use their Matrix-M vaccines. And it's kind of been this ongoing argument over whether or not the future of vaccine technology was either in mRNA tech or in improvements in adjuvants and antigens. Right, and if you don't know,
and I think that pretty much settles that question.
Yeah, I think we won. I think we won that argument, and I feel like we won that a very long underdog fight where all the big money was against us. It was not the popular idea, but it is more backed by science, and so now the companies are putting their money where, they're investing instead of waiting for the government to give them the money to use that. They're actually investing their own capital, and I feel like that's really clearly winning that argument. I feel like we won that argument.
Yeah, and honestly, from the very beginning, Pfizer in particular was trying to kill Novavax, and they came really close, except for a plucky little group of rebels who kept it alive.
It does feel
and they have finally realized that they can't win.
Yeah,
that was us.
Yeah.
What else is funny is that the traditional vaccine isn't all that traditional.
Oh,
it's
right.
offering something totally new.
Right, because they're always trying to sell Novavax as it's just like old vaccines. And you're like,
right.
Well, I mean, yeah, but also only in the context of mRNA. If you're trying to move to mRNA, then it's those are the old dirty vaccines that we don't use anymore. And people
That's
would always...
what you want to ignore Matrix-M.
Right. And this is, they'd always accuse us of being this is anti-vaxxer talk because you're saying the mRNA vaccines aren't good enough or something. And you're like, well, aren't you just calling... Thank you. Aren't you calling all our old vaccines not good enough when you say, they're our old technology? I feel like as much as those people were like, oh, that's anti-vaxxer talk, I feel like they were slamming our normal vaccines into the ground by being like, no, this mRNA, it makes better vaccines, these are the future, and how they sold it to people. And then now it's like, it's perceived that our vaccines aren't good enough, and it's giving life to all this vaccine hesitancy and people not willing to get them. And for all the accusations of, saying what was accurate was anti-vax rhetoric, they ended up spewing a lot of anti-vax rhetoric in the process, like kind of unbeknownst to them. So I feel like it's really important that like we do want uptake to be high. We do want people to get vaccines. We do want people to have better vaccines, because I feel like at its core, if you're like caring about chronic illness and you're caring about all this stuff, then having good vaccines is kind of like core to that. I mean, I feel like, that's kind of what I learned from COVID. I was always, vaccines were important, but I was never like, oh, we need to fight for better vaccines, because like once you realize how tied they were to people's health and well-being, we need better ones that work good. And it doesn't seem like the market has been that interested in like putting up things. That was the whole problem with mRNA, is the vaccines just weren't creating superior responses. So it was like going to create these additional treatment markets. And what I feel like it all comes down to, that's so frustrating, is you got both groups, both the anti-vax and the pro-vaccine group, kind of trying to like create treatment markets in two different ways. The anti-vaxxers want to remove vaccines, and that will create more chronic illness, because they're like, well, only some people die, but a lot of people will need more wellness grifting. And then, which is true, we've seen that from long COVID, we've seen it with all these other things. There's just so much opportunity for wellness grifting that they're like kind of trying to feed on. But at the same time, the people who are investing in vaccines on Wall Street, at least up till now, were saying things like, maybe we need to rethink, getting rid of disease. Like maybe a vaccine that's too good is kind of a problem. And that's a weird sentence to have. So it's like both groups are trying to like create these sideways treatment industries through different means, and neither one is like grounded completely in reality. So seeing this pivot of companies investing in this technology that we've been pushing so hard, like, I understand why people think that I was like a stock investor, because we push it so hard, but at the same time, it's starting to really catch on, and it does have the potential to reduce chronic disease. Like the more Matrix M that gets used, like because of how it increases the breadth of antibodies, it has this effect from the saponins. It's a really special thing. It could help a lot of people. We've seen it help people with long COVID. We've seen it help people with malaria. We've seen it across the board help people. So, I think that's why vaccine advocacy is actually really important, because it's probably the place where you can help, single place your activism can help the most people.
What was the efficacy? Well, we know about that word, but I'm just going to use it anyway.
Sure.
What was the efficacy of the malaria vaccine before Matrix M?
It was like between 30 and 40%.
And now it's 77?
Yeah, it's between like 70 and 80%, right. Yeah.
I believe the highest that was ever achieved, even in like trials in a perfect setting, was like low 50s, like I want to say 54, 55%. So at least from that setting, it's at least a 20% jump with Matrix M.
Total game changer for malaria vaccine.
Well, and it does it with fewer vaccines. That's the other thing too. The one took 4 vaccines to get those peak results, which is a lot of vaccination to do over a long period of time, where you're vulnerable to the disease the entire time. And then we were able to get that with 3 shots. And then they were still going to do a 4th shot, which that might even increase the protection even more. So I never saw the 4th shot data. But the other thing is, it's very cheap to produce. It's not a huge money maker, but it's very cheap to produce. So it's like you're kind of on the right end of a lot of arguments as far as like helping people, getting these things out there, and then what that stands to do for our children in the future and our grandchildren, if you're into the whole having kids thing. Because some of this technology is going to take a couple of, like probably a generation to really come to fruition. That's how long things really take. But to make it this far in this short amount of time, I think it stands as a possibility for a real paradigm shift on the subject of how, like, the business approach. Because, long COVID is creating so much stuff. It's sort of like the idea of profitability from disease is sort of I want to use the word harrowing, right? Like it's not a good decision. We need better vaccines right now, and we need to increase uptake, and we need to convince people they're new and interesting, and or else these, you know, the more people that get infected with these things without vaccines, the more long term. That's the other problem. They're like long term issues. Like they're not like, you know, a kid who doesn't get the smallpox vaccine could be deaf or blind or some other issue because sure they didn't die, but there's still horrible consequences. Which I mean is kind of true with a lot of things. I mean, we're even seeing that with to make an awkward pivot to what's going on with ICE in Minnesota. We are seeing some positive progress as far as what's his name, Servino was the guy's the ex-main guy who's just got fired.
Is it Bovino?
Bovino, Servino, like he's the director or actor. So he's out. He's getting things. He's supposed to be retiring soon. He's getting sent back to California, where he's from. The guy who's replacing him, Human, right? At least they've got someone. Human. Yeah, they got. Yeah.
Replacing him?
They're like, get someone who acts like a human in there, and they just went with the name. But yeah, no, he's coming to replace him. He's not like a great dude either, but he's better technically. But again, you're back to this thing of like, okay, so what they want to like make their operation like more attractive or more human or like, no, the whole thing has got to stop. And I do feel like we're
That guy's not human either.
Right?
At all.
Well, we still have all these people in these detentions. Like, we keep getting videos of kids screaming and crying. And did you guys see the video in Texas of all the people in color-coded jackets yelling for help?
No.
It's like really something. Like we're
That was heartbreaking.
Yeah, we're closer to armbands than people realize, because I think we think about the Holocaust in the context of Jewish people, but they actually had armbands to identify all types of people who were considered heinous for whatever reason. And so,
Pink triangles for the LGBTQ people.
Right, there's a ton of them. There's like 25 of them. So there's a lot, and I think that's something that people forget. So you see people in like colored jackets, where that's basically one step from armbands. And I think, you know, I think the one thing that no one expected was that that Americans are willing to die for their rights, like to protect their rights and to protect the rights of others. Like they're prepared to die. They're prepared to stand in front of a barrage of bullets, and like that's patriotism. And it's sort of like, I think that's the thing. Like I think they expected to like kill one person, and then all the other protesters would be afraid, and people just started showing up in body armor.
Yeah. Of course, Minnesota, of all places, Minnesota has a very high level of social solidarity.
Right.
Which is, I think, maybe why they attacked it in the first place. To
That's
see if they could
exactly
disrupt
why they're
that.
there.
And also, yeah, and it's also why they're losing.
Yeah, I think also have really strong unions out there too, and
They do, yeah.
And so it's kind of like they wanted to come in and like break that sense of solidarity, but I don't think
If we can break Minnesota, we've got it all.
it's weird how these guys really think that what they see on Fox News is reality. Like it really does feel like it comes down to that, right? Like they're doing this and they're doing that, and I'm like, you heard that on Fox News though. That was a Fox News thing, and they're like, no, this is real because Fox News is real, and you're like, no, man, no, it's not real. And they can't comprehend that. I don't know, man. You know what I'd explain to somebody, and this is a liberal, they actually did hear me, so it was actually nice when I explained it to them. But they say, you know, well, police are supposed to protect and serve us. That's the thing. And you're like, no. They went to the Supreme Court and fought and argued that it is not their requirement to protect and serve us, and they won. And people are like, wait, what? And you're like, yeah, they argued at the federal government level that they don't have to do that. and people kind of are like, how is that like really a thing? And you're like, I don't know what's going on there in people's minds, but we definitely, and this is kind of like back to like where I feel like the only, and we talked about this before, but I feel like the best thing we got coming from us out of this is that they've destroyed so much of the federal government that we're gonna have to rebuild these things, and we're kind of gonna go through like a reconstruction phase at a federal level over the next couple of years. And I feel like who gets in charge
A real
of that?
one.
Potentially.
A real one this time, not the half-assed one they did after the Civil War.
Ah, wow, that's when you're going back trying to fix things from the Civil War still, you know you're a little behind on your work.
I know, but I mean, I was a history major. That's one of the problems. Johnson kind of went easy on the South. That's not what they should have done.
Well, they also did, when the South was out, they passed a bunch of things without their say. They did. So, like, basically the Civil War starts, and the federal government continues going, and now they don't have to worry about all the people who disagree with them. So they just passed a bunch of stuff. It's funny. But, yeah, I know, you're right, And you can even argue it's like we're kind of like, as they talk about how, like, they're undoing a lot of the post-World War II world. You know what I mean? Because undoubtedly, the way our country has been set up has been in a post-World World War II scenario where the different sides that, from Russia to America, splitting Germany down the line, and then how that process worked with the, Asian markets on the other side. And then the American dollar coming in as a
NATO,
yeah, all those things, and like having those sort of like even the World Health Organization and having all those things sort of fall apart, or we're removing ourselves from them, is scary, but it's also kind of a weird, interesting point in history. It's bound to happen eventually, one way or another, because it's just the nature of people. Like, you know what I mean? Every 100 years or something like this happens. And we're kind of at that. It's sort of like how they said, what was the Constitution writer said? The Constitution had to be renewed every 250 years or something like that.
Sounds like something Jefferson would say.
Yeah, I can't remember what the exact quote was, but it's something along those lines, how it needed to be redone every so often. And we're kind of at that
Not
point.
The Tree of Liberty thing.
Needs to be watered periodically with the blood of revolution. That was definitely Jefferson.
The blood of patriots, and I forget what it was. Yeah. What the saying was.
But we're never going to get we're never going to get it back to the way it was, because NATO is never going to trust us again. Even if we fix everything, we're no longer a reliable partner. I mean, look, we elected Biden. The powers that be, the European countries thought, oh, good, they've come to their senses. They got rid of that guy, and we elected him again. We lost their trust.
Yeah, which I mean, I don't blame them. I don't blame them.
No, I don't blame them at all.
And I do think that whole, so the situation has been, and this is really coming to a head with the Russia and Ukraine situation right now, is that, if you guys don't know, listeners, the American government military has been the, like we told Europe, you don't need a military because they got so wiped out during World War II. Like, we'll focus on the military. We'll be the military for everyone. You don't need a standing military. And then now
we'll take care of you.
Right. And now we're like, no, we're not going to do that anymore. And then now they're already building their standing militaries. Like, I know Germany has a pretty intense plan to start building out its military, and they're talking about it in other countries already, where those weapons are going to come from and blah, blah, all this stuff. It's, that's actually really important because America is where a lot of it's coming from, but now it needs to come from other places. So you're looking at you have China, Russia, and America as the main producers. So you're just kind of into, it changes the politics of everything. And I think a lot of this, we talked about this before. I think more than anything that Trump and his idiocy is what we're seeing is the damage to soft power, right? And how it translates to real power. Like, I feel like all this funding that we did to like the WHO and the UN,
USAID, it may have been a CIA, will help people.
Right. Well, I think it also really goes to show, the thing I've been explaining about, we talk a lot about inflation and all this stuff because we've been through it a bunch with different economic decisions around how it's going to impact people. And I feel like one of the things that I always say that seems counterintuitive is that we talk about the debt. We're like obsessed with the debt, but there is no real debt. That's not how federal debt works. And so basically they say, well, if you spend too much money, it's going to lead to inflation. And you're like, no, as a currency creator, it's spending less money leads to inflation because it makes the dollar worth less the less you spend of it. And it's this idea that's kind of related to the velocity of money and a couple other things, but like as a currency creator, as our job to distribute that currency, we distribute currency and keep our currency at a priority, which keeps its value up because there's a high demand for it. And if you reduce access to that currency, it actually reduces the demand because people will use a different currency instead. And that's where like China has stepped in, where they're trying to get their currency used, other places where American currency was used, and then that makes their dollar worth more and our dollar worth less. And this is an idea
very, very bad for Americans. Very bad.
Right. And we teach it the other way for some reason. We teach it that, you know, the government has debt, and the more money that the government spends, less value the currency has. And that's a pre-fiat currency gold-backed idea, and it's a really important distinction because we're always like, well, we don't have money for social services, we don't have money for health care or money for blah blah. And that's just totally not true. That is a completely fabricated idea that they convince the public about so that you think you can't have those things. But in reality, government already subsidizes your health care. Like, these things are already happening. They just repackage them in ways to make it seem like it's not, to convince people psychologically that this is how it works. And you'll find tons of things saying, oh, the debt is this, and we're, $90 trillion in debt to who? The bankers that also use our currency? The ones that sign up to get free access to cash when their banks are collapsing right now? Those people that we owe them money? Like, who do you owe the money to? And so you're kind of like in this situation where people kind of think of it in the context of their debt, their credit card debt. Because you had $5,000 in credit card debt and you spent too much and now there's interest on it. But America creates its own currency. It doesn't have a relationship with money like that. And we're really seeing the negative impacts of not understanding this concept because Trump and co. don't understand how anything works. Anything at all. And now we're seeing that really come. But I don't think the left understands. I don't think anyone understands this. It's literally the reason Rome collapsed. It's literally the reason, because senators got obsessed with debt. They switched to fiat currency, and they wanted to steal all the money, so they stopped sending money out to the furthest reaches of the empire, and the empire collapsed because other groups came. It takes about 20 years in that era because it's the life of a soldier, like how long it takes a soldier to come to become a soldier. And those people aren't going to Rome anymore. They're now going to whoever the hell else has money for them. And then now those people have an army and you don't. And that's a kind of more of a simpler version of it, but it's the same idea. So it's just, I don't know, Terry. I feel like I'm going to die trying to explain this to people, like as an old man, still like, no, Sonny, gather here. Let me tell you how it really works. I'm like, sure, Grandpa, whatever. Okay, Janning me.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Sure, Jan.
My nightmare is being the old lady in the nursing home that says, I remember when there were dolphins and manatees. Yeah, sure, Granny.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, it's true though. It feels like he's like, you don't need real manatees. You can just rent one at the zoo. We have them in cages. You don't need like real manatees. They'll be fine.
Oh God.
You're like, oh God. Yeah, exactly. No, I on one hand, I'm like very nervous as one should be of like where things are headed and where things are going. But I feel like we're seeing like a radicalization among the establishment left, where the demands are just really changing from the people and what they want. Like people are like, we're no longer like, and I feel like also we're talking about primaries at the right time. Like I feel like primaries as a concept, like usually when primary season comes around, I'm like trying to.
It's too late.
Yeah. Or you're like trying to convince people to get interested in primaries, and they're like, "No, I want to support my established politician." Like not going to do that. But now they're like, these people need primary challengers across the board. And I don't think there's enough money to primary everyone. Like, I think that's the thing that people kind of forget. But putting that money in the right places could get a couple of key wins and kind of shake things up. Like, we need Democrats to win the midterms. And people are like, well, Trump's going to rig the midterms. You're like, I think the one thing we're learning is he does not have the power to rig the midterms, and he knows it. Even if they got the voting rolls and all the voting data, that's still not the ability to rig the primaries.
No, not in and of itself.
No.
And any rigging probably can be defeated by high enough turnout. That's certainly what I've seen in Florida.
Right. Well, yeah, it depends. Some districts are just it's all Republicans, but there definitely is, like in Virginia when we were dealing with that, and the guy told me that it was the most, and he had participated in accidental gerrymandering, and he's like, no one could ever win the Virginia State House back. And I was like, oh, okay. He's like, it's impossible. It's why I retired and became a mayor. And I was like, okay, well, that sucks. But then we actually looked at turnout, and it was like 13%. And I'm like, why are we even concerned? Turnout's 13%. Yeah. Like, just have more people show up. Just connect with people. I think also it's kind of like where digital campaigns, like, are successful towards the end of the election, but they're not as successful early on in the election, because like you're better off knocking on doors and connecting with individuals and meeting people and trying to remember their names. Like why I could never be a politician is I just can't remember people's names. but it's such a key part of it, like getting out there and engaging with people and getting them to know you and building that like relationship, and that way they don't really see it coming. You know what I mean? If you just start with a bunch of digital campaigns and you have a whole bunch of, Bernie Sanders endorses you right out the gates and you now have national money. Like we've done that with candidates. It's a giant mistake. It's a giant, giant mistake. Not only do they see you coming, so there's all kinds of chance for all kinds of nefarious stuff to go down, but you don't have a connection with your district, Like people really need to connect with you if you're going to have people vote for you. I know you see that in Florida because Florida's the most political
Absolutely.
state. It is. Well, I haven't been there in a couple of years. It seems a little more despondent regarding Democratic elections than it was when I was.
Oh, Democratic elections! Yeah, we're totally despondent. I just am astounded. We have Pinellas County used to have a totally blue county commission. It went red last time. There are 3 Republicans up for election again, and they haven't got any Democratic opponents yet.
Ugh. Yeah, it's not good. And and this is sort of like where running candidates is like, that's the catch-22, right? Like we don't have people running in all these races, which is bad for long-term turnout in every way. Because you really want someone in every race, because even if you're going to lose that race, it improves statewide. They have to spend
their resources fighting in that district and not spend it all on the guy you really want to win and has a chance.
Well, it also improves statewide turnout. So I think the reason that Democrats kind of get their asses handed to them in the Senate races is because there isn't a good nationwide strategy to put candidates in every seat. Because if you put candidates in every seat, that's improves statewide turnout. If there's no Democrat in whatever, then there's no Democrat running in that district, and that means the statewide candidates have to come in and spend more money and put in all the things that local candidate would.
I cannot even remember the names of the Democratic people who ran for Senate against Scott. I can't remember the names. That's how impressive they were.
No, I don't remember. It's been a while, though. Isn't he up soon?
Yes, he is, thank God. But he'll probably win again because he has more money than God.
Yeah, he does. He's very rich. He made his money. Didn't he make it from like Medicare fraud or something?
Medicare, the largest HCA, the company he was CEO of, committed the largest Medicare fraud in history, and he took the Fifth Amendment, I believe it was 75 times when being questioned about it, and skated off with his golden parachute, and somehow got elected governor. Because it's Florida.
Yeah. Well, and he's like, auditioning for the role. Lately, though, when he talks, you're just like, stop talking. Just stop talking.
And now he's going on talking about how we got to fix healthcare.
Well,
coming from him, that's really funny. Yeah, because I'm not making enough money out of it, right?
Exactly. He needs to sign up for his next check. That seems to be the way.
Fox wants to get back into the hen house.
Right. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. It feels like that's so the case when you're dealing with these guys. It's like whenever they want to do anything, it's because they have some sort of like, well, this is how my scam works, and it's time for a new scam. And it's like Manchin retiring after his wife gets a $2 billion what's it called, pork payment in the last reconciliation bill that the Democrats passed, and he's like, yeah, no, I'm good. I'm good. We got $2 billion and no oversight. He's like, I think I'm done with elections. It's crazy.
He's going out on his boat.
Yeah, right.
What was that thing called? I forget. He had a weird name
He
for it.
did have a boat. Yeah, what was that called?
Yeah, I was on it.
It had
They
a
went and protested at it.
it had a funny name, and I can't remember it now.
Yeah,
But yeah, besides like the 50 straight state strategy that you were talking about, like now's the time for like a message and actually to run on specific goals and policy set. And there's a lot candidates can do, and not just do the same old.
They're bad. We're better.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
I don't know. In this case, ICE is pretty bad. For them to be like, ICE is bad, and then not have any other good policies, and that would be honestly enough right now. But I
really need to do it.
Will they even do that?
We really need to do the thing of how we got here and where it came from, and in order to get out of it.
Yeah, I'd agree 100%. And that's the problem, right? That people don't want to like say where we were talking about in the pre-call. We were talking about all this vaccine hesitancy and all these issues, and we were discussing how we were talking about the mRNA tech earlier, and like how it was handled has led to so much vaccine hesitancy because of people were dishonest about what it would do and how it would do it to get people to get them, and like how they it was all wrong, and there's been no like reflection on like, well, maybe we did, because here's the thing. So we talk about Novavax, and there's always an argument over whether Novavax is sterilizing vaccine. People are always fighting with me. They're rolling their eyes just as me saying that. But the truth is that we don't use the right term for sterilizing. All these people who are out here saying, well, when we have a sterilizing vaccine, no, guys, that's not. We don't have the technology. Like COVID is too much that even if you had a good upper respiratory tract nasal vaccine that had a high level of prevention consistently, you'd still get COVID. You'd still get COVID because you're talking about like how high the volume of the virons are during an infectious dose. Like it's more than an immune system even boosted. So like the sterilizing thing that we've been talking about is a much more like looser concept, but we're kind of just discussing the whole thing wrong. But people come to me and they say, you're giving people a false expectation, because I'm like, no, but it will block infection, is rated to block infection in like somewhere around 60% of cases. It's not enough for all cases, but it will block infection in some cases, especially like at home, low dose exposure. Like there's a bunch of reasons that you combine that with like a nasal spray. You should be wearing a respirator in public places. You put those things together, now you're blocking infection. But people come to me and they go, well, don't you think you're giving people a false sense of expectation? And I'm like, no, because I'm telling people exactly what the data says. But it feels like, for as much shit as I get about that, like these are the same people who were out saying that mRNA would block infection when it first came out. They were telling people things that were literal false expectations, and then they're having zero self-reflection, and then just turning around and accusing other people who are accurately giving out the information that they're the ones doing it. So they know it's a thing, they know it happens, but they cannot self-identify that they were the ones doing it. And I feel like there's just this thing where like people point the finger, like they project what they're doing first, and then you can't be like, no, that's literally what you did. You were the one who did that. And you like, oh no, but I said it first. I'm the one who said it first, so I can't have done it because I called you out for it first. Because just that whole like playground yard bullshit has really led to like kids at risk now. Like it's really led to kids not getting vaccinated, and all these anti-vaxxer rhetoric having more like reality, because most people only learned about vaccines from the COVID pandemic. So like people didn't have a position beforehand where they understood this. So if you just lied to people and it did not come to fruition the way that they can see with their own eyes and ears, then all it does is lend credence to all these literal monsters who are saying, oh yeah, well, if they said all vaccines are as good as that and that didn't work, so none of our vaccines work, you don't need vaccines, the vaccines are killing you, they're giving your kid autism. Like that's where, like, that sounds like reasonable somehow to people, and clearly it does. People want to argue with me and be like, no, Don, it's not, of course it's not reasonable, but it sounds reasonable to people who don't believe that what you just said to them. Like, you gave them false expectations, you lied to them about what they can do, and now it's turning around and like it's putting kids at risk. Like, it's such a weird like cause and effect, and nobody wants to like have a moment and be like, hey, maybe we should have done that better.
We shouldn't have oversold them the way that we did.
I think it's wild that we thought that based on the history of vaccines and history of everything, I think it's wild that they thought they would get it right with the first one. Like, I mean, that's not a thing that happens. That's not a thing that happens. It always takes a couple. The first one doesn't really work. 10 years later, we have a new one. The blah, blah, blah. We kind of like do the thing. That's kind of like how historically it's always worked. So like to think that they would get it right on the first try is just like peak hubris.
They oversold it to the point of like less than half the country was vaccinated, and like most countries were in single digit numbers, and they were telling people to take their masks off.
Yeah, that's the other thing. It's sort of like, you got all these people who are saying, I read something, I think it's Rasmussen or whatever, so it's kind of all a right-wing drivel right off the top, but
like, even if it worked perfectly, that wouldn't work.
Right, yeah, exactly, right. Even if they worked perfectly, you still couldn't get this and take your mask off and do all this sort of stuff. Is the 1 in 4 people think they know someone who died from the COVID vaccine?
Like, they think they know.
Yeah, exactly. They think they know. Yeah, exactly. But I mean, that's a very powerful motivator for people when like 25% of people think they're going to find someone who agrees with them really, really easily. While you have like the actual virus that's actually causing all these real problems, and people are like, they can't see, no, the vaccine didn't protect them from the virus, and then they died from the virus, and they're like, no, that can't be right, because you're like, cause why? Cause it's like, yeah, the virus is dangerous. It turns out they're bad for us. Like, I don't know where we forgot that. Like, it is such a weird, because I think about RFK Jr. swimming in that poo water in DC or whatever, he's swimming in that creek, and I can't help but feel that there's like this, like, no, parasites are good for you. You should get some parasites. If you keep
I've got a brainworm. It's great.
Yeah, if you keep a good balance of parasites, you'll always be a little healthier. And you're like, I don't. You're gonna have to run that by me one more time, Chief. I don't think that's how that works.
The parasites will kill each other.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. See, I have a brainworm, so what I need to get is a second brainworm, okay? And then the second brainworm will kill the first brainworm. And you're like, right, but you still have the brainworm. It's like, yeah, but it's the dominant brainworm. And you're like, I don't. Oh my goodness. But it's kind of like how it is, because I feel like breathing in dirty air is so similar to him swimming in that poo water.
It really is.
You know what I mean? It's just like a different scale. Like, the breathing in the air is a smaller scale. The parasites are smaller. It's still parasites. I think that's also one of the things I hate about the right-wingers the most, and the whole ivermectin conversation, which is just so insanely stupid. That people lost track that viruses are parasites. They're, obligate intracellular parasites. They're parasites by definition. And I feel like the ivermectin thing is like, well, it's a parasite, so you treat it with antiparasitics. And you're like, no, they're different types of parasites. These are smaller ones that don't respond to yeah, spoilers. Yeah, it didn't. It was a thing. I disconnected, reconnected briefly there, so that's been my first one in 40 minutes. But I've had good internet signal, so hopefully, just so you know, if you're listening to us on Twitter, it breaks them up when my thing gets disconnected or reconnected. But if you go to our YouTube, the YouTube is one long video. You just hear me say, "Hey, I think I disconnected for a second there." So we do have a YouTube, which someone should put a link in the chat for this or something. But it's, I think it's just OFABT, right? OFABT. But we do have a thing. We don't have a ton of people over there listening to us, but it does give you that long one thing that doesn't seem to be stopped during the interruptions. But this is still better than it was the last couple of times. So I'll take it.
I didn't. You were talking earlier about the Homan is taking over for Bovino. I didn't hear that story. Like, whatever happened with his scandal? Like, didn't he like accept cash from somebody, like $50,000, and there was this whole thing that went down, and then he kind of like everything went quiet on that.
Exactly. They buried it this year, or last year, I should say.
And
He was under investigation in 24, and then of course, Trump's people just buried it.
but now he's sort of
he has
getting in.
Well, it's this October 16, 2025. He was so in September 2024, he was allegedly recorded accepting $50,000 in cash from undercover FBI agents, posing as a businessman seeking government contracts. The Justice Department closed the investigation in 2025 without charges, and the White House has defended Homan, calling the probe political motivated hit piece and entrapment effort. Which, I mean, it is technically sort of, but it doesn't matter. They're all criminals. I mean, it's not like we need this to know he's a criminal. But he denies that he took it very aggressively, but I'm pretty sure it was on video, wasn't it? Like, they have it on video, him doing it?
Yes, allegedly, yes.
Allegedly. I remember when that happened, but I did not remember what actually came of that. So yeah, so naturally they're just sweeping it under the rug.
And isn't he also responsible for the family separations stuff? Wasn't that his
Oh yeah,
doing?
I think so. The cruelty being the point kind of stuff. Yeah.
So he's not necessarily better.
No, not at all. He's a horrible person.
Yeah, it specifically says, now I'm at my computer so I can just get the real answer. Yes, everything you said is correct. He is the key architect and defender of the zero-tolerance family separation policy implemented during the first Trump administration. And over 5,000 children were separated from their parents at the border.
In Trump world, known as a great guy.
Yeah, great guy, the best guy. I don't feel like he's like a big improvement. I just think like Bovino was like literally throwing tear gas at protesters himself personally, and he was like playing like SS soldier, like he was giving like, Nazi salutes and doing all sorts of things, and like he's just like a real embarrassment to America, and pulling him out of that position is a win, but it's certainly not the. I mean, I feel like this doesn't stop. Like there is no win that makes it stop until the detention centers are closed. Because the detention centers are like the for-profit prisons on like steroids, and when you think about this, you can't so we had all those people get sent to Venezuela or wherever it was. Not Venezuela, it was the South American country, El Salvador. Thank you. And so they had all those people get sent there, and we were only trying to get one of them back, and it always bothered me because. Why only him? How do we know there's not more people who shouldn't be there? Like, none of those people should be there. It doesn't matter if they are literally who they say they are. None of them, 0% of them should have been sent out of the country until they had a proper trial.
Right.
And so, like,
due process.
Right, due process. Just to figure out who they are so we actually know. But we didn't know. We don't know what's going on. There is no due process. So it always kind of bothered me that people were like, oh, well, we got... Garcia, I think his name was, so they got him back, and they're still trying to deport him again. He's on TikTok, I don't even know where to start with that. But the point is that, like, I feel like there's this thing where, like, well, we saved the one guy. Well, what about the rest of them? Well, they're, like, hard criminals. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if they're, like, you can't just say that about people. Like, you're supposed to get...
You can't pick and choose who gets rights and who doesn't. Because by doing that, you're really saying that none of us truly have rights.
Right, because you just have someone who fell between the cracks, and now they don't. They might as well not. It's okay. It's okay. That one guy we saved, he didn't deserve, but the rest of them do. And you're like, how do you know that?
And you see what that mentality leads to. It leads to shooting people in the streets.
Yes, yes, it does.
You know,
They
we
did.
have that system of process in every situation.
Right. And they did figure out who the shooter. We have figured out who the shooter was of the most recent shooting. He is a real piece of work. His stuff he's posting on social media is like psycho shit. Like he's truly
Is he a problem?
yeah. Saying all the just I don't know, just how do I even? Women should be in the kitchen, and these people should be in asylums, and just like everybody who isn't like a white man should be oppressed. Kind of really toxic, insane, and he just went out and killed somebody. You know what I mean? Because if you watch that shooting, I mean, it's calling it execution is appropriate because there's like he's like watching them all struggle, and he's like, why don't you guys just shoot him? And he just like pulls out his gun and shoots him in the back. See, done. And you're like, no, dude, you can't do that. He's like, we can do whatever we want. And you're like, no, you can't. And there is a report coming out that they're saying, I don't know if this is real or not, but I saw someone tweeting it, which was that, and it makes sense, that ICE agents are afraid that if they have to take their masks off, that they'll be ostracized by their family and friends for the rest of their lives. And you're like,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. That's,
maybe something you're doing has something to do with that.
yeah. They're like, but if you find out, my family will hate me. Yeah, that sounds about right.
You should do it.
You earned that, buddy.
Yeah, congratulations. Yeah, that's what you get. That's the win stupid games, or was it play stupid games, win stupid prizes? I think we've talked about this a lot on here. Is that people underestimate how intense Americans can get about certain things. Like it seems like Americans are always like asleep with their bread and circus, and you're like, yeah, it's for the best. Because like things get wild if you start like taking away their bread and circus, or you become the circus. Like it's
actually, yeah. Look at World War II. There was a huge and strong isolationist movement. It was going to be hell to get us into that war. Then they bombed us, and everybody was like, "What?"
right.
And in no time, they tooled up the whole, economy to produce war machines and go to war.
Right, which is kind of back to that post-World War II economy. Like, so much is built around war and death, you know what I mean? That you kind of got to create wars so that you can keep feeding that economy. And that's one of the things I hope really comes out of this is something to change. Though, with, the Greenland thing, or the Iceland-Greenland... I had a realization the other day. I was talking to Lee about it because I was looking at a map and I was like, you don't really realize how close these things are to each other. Like Greenland is like really close to us because it's at the top of the planet. It doesn't feel that way when you look at the maps. But one of the things that we do is we artificially inflate sizes of Western countries to make them seem bigger. And it occurred to
that's
me,
true.
yeah, it occurred to me that in the maps that America uses, they have made Greenland look like 10 times larger than it is. And so if you actually look at how big Greenland is compared to like America, it's like it stretches from like Michigan to Louisiana kind of narrowly, like it's about that size. So it is like the length of America, or whatever height, I guess, if you want to think about it that way. But Trump is probably looking at one of these maps, seeing this enormous piece of land. It looks like the.
You wouldn't know any better.
So yeah, exactly. He thinks there are penguins there for starters. So I mean, there are no penguins in the northern hemisphere. For those are
like it's the biggest. We must have it.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm thinking he's looking at one of those maps and he thinks it's this enormous, untouched, like it looks like. Do you remember Superman Returns? Is that one they made? Is a Brandon Ruth Superman from a couple years ago? And the plot was he was going to use the Kryptonian technology to build this giant piece of land so that they could. Sell it because it's property. It's kind of a stupid plan, but it's very Lex Luthor. And it just kind of reminds me of that a lot. Like he sees this map and he's like, "Look at that big piece of land. I could do so much with that piece of land. It's humongous, and we need it for our safety." Like I can see how that. And then someone's like, "No, no, sir, it's actually like a tenth the size of that." And he's like, "Oh." Like I can totally see it as like he thought it was just this huge piece of, you know, untouched real estate, and you're like, no, dude, it's an iceberg with 60,000 people on it. Oh man, I don't know. We really need to stop doing our maps that way, by the way. That's super racist. It's a white supremacy thing, apparently. But it seems like everything's a white supremacy thing. If you spend more than a second thinking about it, you're like, oh, it's the same reason why they saved one guy instead of saving everybody. It was the same reason that, you know, it's like, oh, 2 white people got shot, and you're like, okay, yeah, but and I think it's been the most powerful statement. If they're willing to kill 2 white people in the street, what are they doing to brown people where we can't see them? Which kind of like leads me back to that whole like, we need to like. ICE shouldn't exist. These detention facilities shouldn't exist. A lot of these people were following the legal pathway to citizenship that the government promised them. The government owes them that. So, like, the whole process is insane. Like, these weren't undocumented people. These are documented people. They're specifically, like, how do you capture undocumented people if you're using their documentation? Like, it just... So it's just kind of like the logic is it kind of just shows that these things shouldn't exist, and we need to have a safer, more clear way for people to enter our country, or we got to take that sign down, the Statue of Liberty down, right?
Definitely, yeah. No tired, no poor. We don't want them.
Yeah, exactly. It's weird too with these people who are like their whole shtick is taking advantage of other people's labor, and then they're like, well, what if we just like got rid of all of the laborers? And you're like,
what if you do? Yeah, well, you know what? When I go to facilities, it's black and brown people taking care of Granny in there.
Yeah, the shocking amount of children. The children is that like groups and groups of children who are like just there's no record of where they are. We're just losing people's kids. Like this is because
they're trafficking them. I'm convinced they're trafficking them.
Well, the family separation thing was like a huge problem because we literally were not tracking. Like you'd separate the parents and the kids at the border, and then
we lost them.
Who's tracking the kids? Where the fuck is the kid?
Yeah, we lost them.
It's just I don't think people understand how big of a problem lost children actually is in America. I feel like this is something that sounds a little like, oh, Don's got his tinfoil hat on. No, like how many kids get lost in the foster system every year? It's like 80,000 or something. It's a really shocking number. Hang on.
You gotta find it now, huh?
Gotta look it up. 55 children disappear from care every day.
Wow.
Oh my God.
55 children go missing daily. There is a lot of talk that some of these people are like 15, 16, aging out, but it's children, just vanishing.
Right.
We'll talk about an under-resourced area of government, the foster care system, that dependency system is terribly under-resourced. You know, those caseworkers can't possibly keep up with all the kids.
Well, yeah, world's a big place, and there's no one really. I feel like for all the talk about caring about the kids, I just feel like we don't at all. And I feel like it really comes down to, you know, oh they should get vaccination thing, blah blah. So yes, they should, all those things, but like. We still allow child brides in America. Child brides is a thing in like 25 states. Like it's
the South mostly, I'm assuming.
Yeah, it's as young as 14 or no 12. It's 12 in Tennessee. You can get a judicial order to marry a 12-year-old in Tennessee. That was yeah.
You can get a what did you just say? You
get a judicial order, like a judge can marry 40-year-old man to a 12-year-old. Yeah.
I was unaware of that.
Yeah, it's kind of depressing, but I feel like it's important to talk about because, for as much as we're trying to make it better, you're like, where the bar really is like much more in hell than people realize. Like, the bar is so low, it's in hell. This was something in the Bernie movement I started bringing up a lot, and people were just like, oh yeah, it's legal in 34 states. 4 states do not require any minimum age for marriage if you have a parental or judicial waiver. And this was like a thing that started in like Marilyn Monroe. Marilyn Monroe is one of these girls where she was rightly.
Yeah.
Just read that in the chapter.
Oh, you're reading that in the book as I'm saying that? Oh, that's funny. She's, as I brought that up, she's literally reading her Marilyn Monroe book. It was what she was literally reading at that exact moment.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, spoilers. Yeah, no, but she was like 14 or 15, and she could either go in the adoption system or get married to someone. And she got married to someone. And I believe that's when she lived in Catalina Island?
Yeah, for 1 year she married Jim Doherty when she was 16. They got divorced when she was 20.
Yeah, there you go. So, there you go. She got married at 16 because it was either that or the foster system. And you get married instead of joining the foster system. So this was like a really normal way to like handle stuff in like the 40s and 50s. But, it was never normal. It was never, and so a lot of those laws are still in place, and so it's like okay, so here's an article, January 1st, 2025, New Hampshire's child marriage ban went into effect on Wednesday, making it the 13th state to require people to be 18 years or old to get married. So it's only 13 states where it has an 18-year requirement as of January 1st, 2025. So, I mean, yeah. Sorry to get... this really bothers me, especially my daughter's 16 today. This really, really bothers me. That we don't, like, talk about it or know about it. Like, people are always like, why don't... I think... And also, and I think it really comes to a head when you're doing COVID conscious activism. I feel like it sounds like this isn't that... I mean, it's important, obviously, but it doesn't directly correlate, but, like, they don't give a shit about kids. They don't give, it's a machine, it's a meat machine, and they don't give a shit. So when you're like trying to protect people, they're like, no, we need the system so that like the weak don't make it. And you're like, excuse me? Like, yeah, we don't actually want equal opportunity for people. We want them to file into their class system based on money and immunity and where they're from, and it's just like any other caste system, except it's less like technical. You can technically get out of it, but it's the goal is not opportunity for all. The goal is not
really not.
Yeah.
And it's not, it's not family. We don't give parental leave. We don't think it's that important for parents, and I'm saying parents meaning it could be the father or the mother, to stay and take care of their baby. It's more important to get them back into the workforce.
Right. Yeah.
Put your kid in daycare with a whole bunch of other kids. They can catch a lot of diseases together. Now that there's COVID, we can have that too. But goddamn it, get back to work.
I'm going to say, is it just me, or does it feel like there's been a lot more child mortality too? Like, I feel like we see the COVID flu reports, stuff like that, but I feel like there's been more like baby mortality is like being re-normalized right now. Where they're like, well, sometimes one of them doesn't make it. And you're like, wait, no.
That was in the 19th century.
Yeah, exactly. Like, how do we go backwards on that? Where it's like normal. I mean, I understand, your child dies. It's very hard. You got to kind of normalize it to some degree because part of the stress response. And recovery. But there's so much, like, especially this flu and apparently with COVID, it's mostly children and old people, like babies in the hospital, and the whole mentality behind it has just gotten so
what's so cavalier about
backwards. Yeah, it's so right. It's so backwards. Like, it's like I can't help but feel like we're seeing, I don't know. I wonder how much effect all these infections are having on people's brains more than anything. I feel like we don't.
Yeah.
Like, everyone's too afraid to talk about, like, oh, these things are causing brain damage. Your immune system causes brain damage in full body-wide infections. It affects how you translate risk. It affects all of these things. You see all these things as individual sort of, like, situations. Well, that's not true. It's a lot of the same bad people involved with all of them. And let me tell you this, there is significant, like we were talking about child marriage shit, there is significant pushback to ending child marriage. Like,
By whom?
white men mostly in Republican states, but like significant pushback. Like, you would think it would be kind of like a no-brainer, but it's apparently people with no brains really like it. I don't know. It's so it's just, I think it goes to show, like, if you feel like you're trying to get like clean air in schools, or you're trying to do something that helps children in some way, and you feel like you're getting like pushback, yeah, you feel like it's not working, yeah, there's a lot of effort, and it will work, don't give up, but it does seem like, you know, you can really see that the system that we want to change or make better is it's broken on purpose. And I think that's the part of this that a lot of people miss when they're thinking about it. It's like, I think COVID and how they restarted life to like too early really goes to show that like the system was broken before, we had a chance to fix it, and they reinstituted the broken system.
Yeah,
Going back to normal.
back to normal.
Yep.
I had some hope that we wouldn't, but
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like why, like, COVID kind of delayed our chance to reconstruct with the Democrat after the first Trump, and now things are so much worse. But I feel like there's this room to have like a reconstruction, more of a conversation on not like this is how it works, but rather this is how it could work. And changing the whole like business end of it, and I'd like to think that with pharmaceuticals, you know, it kind of comes back around to companies investing in Novavax tech, because that's investment in improving vaccines and reducing disease, which we've seen them for the last couple of years try to spend a lot of money to make vaccines less effective. And I know people will say, "Oh, Don, it's what was happening. It was the goal. The goal of mRNA tech replacing all our vaccines was less effective vaccines that you needed more often, so that they can make more money." That was the plan. And that plan didn't work at all, thank goodness. And so now it's really like seeing a pivot towards doing things that will actually improve people's lives. You know, hopefully we can see that, like, we need to like make improving people's lives profitable again. Sounds weird because I don't really like the idea of everything being surrounded around the idea of profit, but for everyone else it is. So you're kind of like in this catch-22 with it, where you have to try to figure out a way to make it beneficial to the people who are controlling all the money, or else there's no money spent, and then they start spending money on other things that are against you. So it sounds like, I don't know, sounds weird. It feels weird to hear me say it, even me, but like for me, but it just seems so true. And so if doing the right thing is profitable, people will do the right thing. Which sucks, but here we are. So I hope that this is the beginning of a pivot that maybe will lead to, you know, I mean, it's like, yeah, you want to make money, but you got to live in the world too. And what are you making money for if the world's a total, like, hellscape? Like, what's the point of all the money in the world if you can't live in it? So hopefully we're going to see a pivot on that. But I think, guys... other than my nose blowing, I think we're back. I think the show, we had one disconnect. We have been moving Mondays and Thursdays from now on for 2026. But I think this worked.
I think it did.
I think it did.
Woo.
Yeah.
Nice.
I'm as surprised as anyone. I need some water really fast though. So you can, so we're back Mondays and Thursdays. You can join us on Discord. We're going to keep the show down to about an hour, kind of COVID-conscious perspective on everything going on. We definitely want to give people, like, everything's really bad, and, like, we got to keep looking at that exit strategy. We got to keep pushing towards, you know, some type of doorway, some opportunity that improves things for people, because people are still dying. People are dying in the streets. I don't assume that ICE is reined in yet. We've like gotten one step in the reined in direction, but nowhere near where it needs to be. I'm very worried about this government shutdown and that Democrats are going to cave on funding DHS in this thing with.
I am too.
Yeah, because they're going to cave if they get like the tiniest bit of like, okay, well, you're in line now. Because the problem is that people got to understand is a lot of these Democrats support ICE. That's like one of the things that drives me nuts. Where they're like, Kamala wouldn't have done this. There's been this whole like rejuvenate Kamala out of this, and I'm like, guys, Kamala wanted to give $3 billion to ICE. She was running on all these things. Was she running on sending them into our homes and doing all this stuff? They just wanted to do it more politely. And like, it's still the same. Like, this coming to a head now is unfortunate. But if we were going to get real systemic change on this, it was going to have something like this happen. We can't just like make it good enough, like we're even with due process, breaking up families at the borders and all the various inhumane things that are going on. There's so many things that need to stop.
Yeah. Do you guys remember when they were whipping the Haitian migrants on horses during the Biden administration? Like,
What? No, what?
You don't remember that?
Yes, I remember.
When they were
I don't.
deporting thousands of Haitians and they were rounding them up on horseback, and
Yeah.
they were actually whipping them.
Yeah,
I mean,
remember
Was that at the like the Texas border or something?
I forget
Something in that
exactly
way, or
what it was.
what border?
Yeah, I forget exactly where it was, but I can find it for you. But the point is that like they weren't great on this. Democrats weren't great on this whole time since ICE was
No.
invented. It should be gone. It's
Wasn't it who started ICE? Wasn't it Obama or
George W.
George Bush,
W?
second one.
Okay.
2003. So, and there was some hope that Obama would rein it in 2000.
Not at all.
Came to office, and that didn't happen. He record number of deportations. I think 2.5 million in his whole in the
Yeah.
like 400,000 a year, and all
Some
those
people used to call him the deporter in chief.
exactly. So yeah, I don't like the idea of people trying to act like Kamala was going to like fix this. It would have been more of the same, and eventually another fascist. If it wasn't Trump, it would be another one that would start abusing it and doing this kind of stuff.
And you know what? Maybe that would have been worse because
That's
because
risky
it would
talk.
gradually what?
Risky talk, but yeah, it's true. Like, because you're gonna make the point of it would gradually have
Would
gotten
gradually normalize it, and people will get used to things. The old frog in the boiling pot of water. Whereas
Mhm.
now, they move too fast. Trump moved too fast, and people see it now, and they're not having it.
Right.
They're saying that with patrol agents on horseback, did not whip migrants, but used force and inappropriate language, investigators say. But I'm pretty sure
Oh,
we
yeah.
had video. They're saying they were threatening with them with it, sort of thing. But it sounds like it happened, and then the government was like, no, it didn't happen. Did not happen. You're like, I think it did happen. And they're like, no. But this just goes back to like how we handle immigration and how we like people shouldn't need to come here illegally. We should have the system set up. It should be like it should work better. People should be able to come here and become citizens. It's not that crazy. And like it's all down again to white supremacists being like, if you keep letting these brown people into the country, where our white supremacy isn't going to win elections, and I'm just like, should it
And,
have
the
ever
fact that
won elections?
so many brown people are trying to come into our countries because we screwed up theirs.
Yeah, that's
Yep.
the other part that I feel like take some responsibility for the destabilization that you've been participating in this entire time.
All of our imperialist schemes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It does-
Trump's just trying to do it like completely out in the open now.
Which again is like back to like maybe that's better. Maybe it's better to see it all out in the open. And he's like, when they took Venezuela, and they were like, oh well, it's the drugs and it's the thing. And Trump's like, it's about the oil. I called the oil guys before I did it. We're coming in to steal their oil. And
Right.
the oil guys are like, we don't want their oil.
Their oil is very hard to deal with.
Yeah, exactly. They're like,
Mhm.
we don't want their oil because it's a huge mess, and we have to reinvest, and we don't want to do that. And they're like, and Trump's like, what do you mean? What do you mean you don't want to do that? And it's just like,
But my biggest donor says that we need to do this.
Yeah.
Paul Singer.
yeah. I just feel like also so much of it is coming from
Got a way to
Stephen,
de-refine him.
right? I feel like so much of this is coming from Stephen Miller too. Like Stephen Miller is like, no, we should do this. This is a good thing. He's like Trump's already a bad person, but he's like he's just making everything seem so normalized. And he has a long history of this. This is like he did this stuff all the way back to like when he ran for student body office. Said some really terrible shit. So yeah, that's actually I think what I'm looking forward to the most. Like I want to see Stephen Miller's trial. That's
Yes.
that's what it like coming down to for me. Like I get that like Trump, where they're like he has immunity, which I don't really think what he's doing is in the act of being president, but here we are. But Stephen Miller doesn't.
Man, any trial would be a step in the right direction.
Retire peacefully to a book deal is usually what they do.
And no accountability.
No accountability. So hopefully we're going to see a change there. And I do feel like I said, when we were talking about the right versus the left and who was going to win what and what to do with it all, like I would have preferred. I don't think Kamala was a good candidate because Kamala ran a bad campaign. Like if she ran a good campaign, she would have been a good candidate. That's how candidates work. Like candidate can be whoever they want to be in their election, and who they choose to be says a lot about whether or not they're like a good candidate. So it's like you're a good candidate when you're speaking to the majority of voters and inspiring them to vote for you. So like when you say like Kamala is a bad candidate, it's because she didn't speak to voters and listen to them and hear what they had to say and like run her campaign based off of what voters wanted. Excuse me, a majority of voters wanted. They ran this other sideways, like they forgot they're not Republicans for a minute.
Joe Biden was really unpopular, and she said she couldn't think of anything that she would do different than him.
Right. And I feel like that's where it got wrapped up, actually, in that particular instance. It got wrapped up into, it wasn't that his policies were bad, it's that he was having dementia issues. But the thing was that...
His policies were bad, though.
Yeah, the problem...
bad.
The problem was that he could not recover his unpopularness with the dementia issues. It wasn't that the dementia issues were the problem, it's that he was so unpopular that now he has dementia issues, he can't fix his popularity. So then coming in with the same unpopular positions just made no freaking sense. Like they didn't have a good grasp on why we were actually there and what the real problem was. And they were trying to insulate power too much. They were trying to, once you're in the White House, you want to stay in the White House. So they just like, however we can insulate our power. And you're like, that's not how we like maintain power. Like I think that's like when the White House becomes about individual power instead of, and the people who work there, than about like the country's power and what the country can do.
And also stop blaming voters. Like stop blaming it like it's the candidate's job. Like stop doing that.
Yeah, it is the candidate's job. That's what I was saying, trying to explain to people, is it's never the voters' fault. You don't like how the voters voted? What did you do wrong? Like
What'd you give them to vote for?
Right. And then, I told them if they don't vote for me, all these bad things will happen. And you're like, that's not something to vote for. That is something to vote against.
They can never reflect on their failings.
No. Well, I'm hoping that there's a greater appetite for it now, because I think that the general, like, everything is fine status quo on Twitter is now like, I want trials, I want these people in jail, we need to go all out with this. To abolish ICE has now become a pretty, like, standard thinking. Like, it's kind of like law enforcement. Like, you need law enforcement, but maybe you need to rethink how we do our law enforcement. That's a very reasonable position.
Yeah.
It's just that the people who maintain power do it through law enforcement, so they just see their power being at risk. Like, oh, we've set up this nice system that protects us, we don't want you to change that. And you're like, well, that's the problem. It's set up to protect a small group of people when it needs to protect everyone. So it's sort of like, you're like, yeah, but we got it this way, we're in charge. And you're like, That's really not how it works. But it can be if they can keep everyone out of the system. If you can keep turnout low and keep people depressed, keep people feeling like I feel like the number one thing that I want to see stop being said, if I had the power to actually get people to stop saying it, is about how elections are already rigged and Trump's not going to allow elections or whatever it is. Like, that one really, really irks me, because what if you're reaching someone who doesn't have a lot of like experience in politics, and the only introduction to politics that they get at all is you telling them that it doesn't matter, that they're going to rig the elections anyways and they don't count. Like, that's the worst thing you could tell someone. So it's one of these like that really needs to stop. And I feel like we also really, like, Trump does not have the ability to rig congressional races individually. Like, so how do I explain this? Rigging in elections absolutely happens. It's absolutely a problem. Rigging elections is absolutely an issue. It's easier to rig a statewide election than it is to rig a little tiny congressional race. And you might think, oh, well, all the state elections are filled with all these littler races, and that's true. It's still very hard, but like, they have electronic voting systems that are outdated and problematic. There's this whole thing with memory card systems in Texas that I was reporting on a couple years ago. There's just issues like across the board, and how it's usually more in how votes are counted than they are anything else. So that's kind of like the old Nazi thing they used to say: it doesn't matter who votes, it matters who counts them. And so
That's right.
so that's really true, though. So the systems by which we count things can be things. Now, we do have backup plans in some states. They do 1% manual hand tallies. They do have physical records. Like, there are ways, but you have to go back and check it, and you have to check it really thoroughly. And so, but it's just harder to do that with a bunch of little congressional races than it is to change, like, statewide results. Like, statewide results you could change much easier because they're all tabulated in one spot, while the congressional races are all tabulated in a bunch of different spots. They don't go through the state systems. So rigging congressional races is easy to do, like, one at a time if you have a dirty election official, like, in 2016.
All of them in Florida?
Yeah, I was going to say Debbie Wasserman Schultz. Well, they got found criminally liable for cheating that election. Like, they didn't just, like, we took them to court and won. I mean, I did not personally. I set up the lawsuit, but I wasn't in the lawsuit. But I set all the people up to do the lawsuit, and we won. So they were criminally liable, or they had to pay them a bunch of money or something like that. I can't remember what the actual outcome was. But they agreed they did not handle the election properly, and there was room for it to have been cheated. Doesn't go back and change election results, though. It doesn't unseat her and put him in. It's just they owed him money for handling it wrong. In a way that could have been used for cheating. That's the whole thing. So they broke the rules on basically how, not day of ballots, the other ballots, the mail-in ballots, how mail-in ballots.
Mail-in ballots. It's always the mail-in ballot.
It's always the mail. Because mail-in ballots are usually outside of the 1% hand counts, which is why Republicans want to get rid of them so bad. Because they think that that's how we cheat elections, which, I mean, I don't think so, but it can. It's how they like to cheat elections. So
that's how they do. Think about it. Every accusation is a confession.
Yeah, absolutely. Whatever they accuse anyone else of doing, they're doing. 100%. I mean, just look at how many of them get caught with child abuse materials and stuff like that. Like, they're always like, oh, the trans people are this and that. They're, grooming kids while they're like running,
marrying 12-year-olds.
Right, yeah, fighting for child marriage to stay illegal. Right, there you go, full circle. So, on that note, everything is terrible, but I do feel like there is a glimmer of hope on some of this stuff, that, like, people are becoming more aware of the problems, and there's going to be a big political shift in voting, I think, this year. I think, like, voting turnout, we just need to get it as high as possible across the board, and really in the primaries, because people are like, well, I don't want to vote for Democratic candidates. It's like, okay, but the Democratic Party is completely changing. Like, Congress this year, every 2 years, completely changes. So, like, you want to change the Democratic Party, here's your chance. One of many. You can also do it at the state level with the different state parties and all that stuff, they're constantly changing. So people are always like, I don't like the way they're going, then make them do something different.
Vote for the furthest left person that you can find in the primary.
Or promote them. Promote them so other people find them too.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Promotion on social media is free. So even if you don't have the money to donate or you can't vote for them, just talking about them is huge.
Yep.
So I do want people to stay like kind of hopeful for all the terrible things happening. I feel like, there's movement on getting ICE out of our cities. We need to get these detention centers closed. We need to flip Congress, and we need to flip Congress with people who are adamantly opposed to all this stuff continuing to happen. And we need to impeach Trump. I mean, that's just like, and anyone who's left, like, just impeach them all. Honestly.
Yep. Absolutely.
Even if they're like, oh, we won't get the thing. Oh, we'll get it this time. We'll get it this time. And if we won't, it's going to happen, like, one way or another. There's a lot of votes in the Senate you need, but I feel like as you get closer to actually making that happen this time around, there'll be a greater appetite for it, Especially after midterms, Republicans will be more into it, because if they get him out after midterms, theoretically, J.D. Vance, who I don't see how he wins an actual election fairly, he could get 10 years as president. If he gets put in as vice president in the second half of his term, he can still run twice. So,
man, what a nightmare.
Well, he could help us get Trump out, though. It might help us get Trump out, because they might be like, well, this is our window. J.D. Vance could be in there longer. We don't want that, but they do. So, like, there might be a window to actually have an appetite for getting rid of Trump in that timetable. And then all Democrats have to do to, like, change America and fix it is run on something that people want.
Yep.
That's it. That's all I have to do. It's the lowest hanging fruit of all low hanging fruit. All you gotta do is run on policies that Americans want. And I do feel like Americans are more unified now on a lot of policies than people realize. We just wish they had more progressive opinions about some of the COVID related stuff. But even when you talk about COVID, it's not even just about caring about COVID. It's about cleaning the air in general. We should just have clean air. It's just better off. I wouldn't drink dirty water. Why would I breathe dirty air? That's why I think the shared air statement has kind of gotten laughed at, because all air is shared, and even if we clean it, it'll still be shared. So you say, like, oh, shared air, and people are like, oh, you sound like a goofball. And I said that for years, so I'm not pointing fingers at anyone but myself. But I feel like if we frame it from the perspective of cleaning the air, I feel like you're just it's a much stronger argument of, like, why wouldn't you want clean air?
Yeah.
Right? Like, whether or not you think COVID's real, like, why do you want shit in your air? I feel like there's the potential that in this election cycle we see more of a shift into less about voting as a harm reduction tactic, but more about voting for the purpose of who do you want us to be? Americans see themselves as this, like, guiding force in America. We're clearly not anymore at this moment specifically. So it's sort of like, if we're going to get back into some sort of reconstructive position, we need to decide who we want to be, and we need to elect people that, represent that. So we'll see what happens. Anyways, so I think that's it for us tonight, guys. I want to thank everyone for being here. We have more people here, but they just didn't have anything to say. That's okay. We're getting back into the group calls. We will be setting this up so that now that it's like working, we only had one disconnect. I think we had like 4 last time. Hopefully I can get it down to 0. But you can come to our Discord if you like have a question, or we're gonna try to do like live calls back to the call-in thing. But it's gonna be through the Discord. You're not gonna be able to call in on Twitter anymore. But I think this is better. I think I'm also on my nicer mic. Do I sound better? Does it sound smoother, right?
Actually, yeah, you sound good.
Yeah.
That's new. Sounds good. I like the sound of that. Does anyone have any last sort of thoughts before we get out of here?
I don't want to change the subject, but I sort of wanted to bring something else up because
Bring it up now or never. It's time.
Yeah. Well, I get a nickel every time I say illegitimate ACIP. Hold on. Illegitimate ACIP. Did you hear besides the polio vaccine statement? Did you hear what Kurt Milhoan said about that public health is not their first order of business. It's individual autonomy. ACIP, that is.
What?
That doesn't even make
If-
sense.
Oh God! Oh God!
He basically just out and out said that, you know, they're libertarian ideologues.
Yeah, which they are.
It's not, public health is not the first order of business of his group.
And something about measles is just a cost of doing business.
Yeah, international
I
business.
think he said.
He was saying it's just the cost of, like, way to say the loud part, or the quiet part aloud. You're like, yeah, I don't really know what to do with these guys right now. I feel like you're back to, like, we need to get rid of all of them. And it is kind of like, I feel
It goes
like,
hand in hand with the impeachment stuff.
yeah, I feel like it goes along with all the impeachment stuff, because RFK should be at the top of the list of impeachment. Like, the whole grouping should be. But then at the same time, like, Democrats can never get out of power again, or, like, everyone is going to get impeached all the time. Like, you know what I mean? The Republicans are so petty about this stuff, even though they're completely in the wrong.
If you give people something to vote for, you might never, ever get out of power again just by that.
Yeah, I know. Which would actually be good for the stock market,
Right.
and good for these businesses, and good. Like, I feel like we got to stop thinking the quarter. We need, like, greater stability. I think the public needs like,
Right.
greater stability. I feel like
Long-term goals.
right? Like, we need to really make a move on that philosophically, because that is just it hasn't worked. You know, you think about this quarter and the next quarter and then the next quarter after that, all individually, and then you're all over the place because you don't have a consistent plan. And you really need to think about that long-term growth. I think a good one is to talk about Moderna moving to treatments instead of vaccines. Yeah, it's better long-term growth because the treatments will work and good for stock and good for people, and the vaccines don't really work out. They haven't really passed their phase 3 trials. We would joke that it's not going to pass phase 3 trials without a emergency order, like without skipping a bunch of the tests. It'll never pass phase 3, and they don't. They just don't. If it has an emergency order on it that skips a bunch of the trials, then yeah, of course it does. But that's where we are, and I do feel like RFK and all their rhetoric is, you know, giving nice cover for them to be like, no, it's not that it's not working. It's that there's no appetite for it right now. And you're like, yeah, yes, and anyways, on that note, it is a big win for us, though. I opened the show with it, and I'll close the show with it. We've been advocating for getting Matrix M into more vaccines, and it seems to be that's the direction that we're headed. It seems like it was going to be a fight between whether or not mRNA vaccines or the saponin-based adjuvants were the future, and I think we won that argument. I think the saponin-based adjuvants are the future. That's where companies are putting their money. They're not doing it with government spending. They're doing it on their own. So chalk another W up for the team, because this was something we fought for and advocated for at the government level, and it turned out to actually be right. So that's a good feeling. That's a good feeling. Let's see what else we can get right this year. On that note, that's it. Anybody else? Last thoughts? Nope. Okay.
Nope.
Good night, everyone.